Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Yes, welcome back. Good to have you back here. It is something that two words, by the way. And if you're watching us, you see the two words on the screen. If you're listening to us, I'll explain these two words. But it is almost once you figure out how to harness the power of this, it is like having a coat of armor. It's like a newfound strength in many, many situations. I'm talking about emotional resilience. Now, we know what those two words mean separately, put together. Let's find out. She is an amazing trauma informed coach and helps people all the time and breaks this stuff down so that we can understand it and move our lives forward. Laurie Kroeger is with us. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. How about you?
I'm good. So let's tell everybody you're up in the mountains up yonder in Colorado in like a foot of snow right now.
I am. It's amazing.
It really is. I'm like, I just can't. I know it's November, yeah, approaching mid-November. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's around that time, but Colorado, I thought was warmer recently.
Usually it is, but they just decided to dump a load of snow on us, and in a couple of days it'll be gone. So,
Wow.
fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you're there because normally you're not in that area, but you happen to be there and then it snowed, stuck, if you will, for a couple of days. But I would think that they know what to do, that's not a big surprise. Snow is easy for them.
They do. This one froze really fast and then snowed on top of it. So there's some
Ah,
pretty nasty black ice, and we have a lot of switchbacks. So tight curves going down the mountain, literally down a mountain.
got it. And now that explains it because it was warmer and that's where the
Yep.
freezing came in. And wow.
Yep.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Unless
yeah, it's just better to stay safe and be home.
for
I'll go home
sure,
tomorrow. It'll be fine.
unless you're in Florida or California, the rest of us be prepared. It's coming at some
It's
point.
yep.
It's that season. Tis the season. So these two words, emotional resilience, I know what it is. I feel I now have it, but I don't know if I would best explain it. So please do.
So emotional resilience is really the ability to feel your emotions and bounce back. You're not letting your emotions control your life and the reactions to any given situation. So emotional resilience, like you said, it really is kind of a coat of armor. And what I've noticed, I've actually had a little bit of guilt because people get so overwhelmed by things that happen in life. Sometimes I feel guilty because I don't let that affect me.
Yeah.
And so that is yet another emotion that you really have to focus on and work through. And that's part of the emotional resilience. It's like, okay, there's a little guilt there. I'm sorry you're going through that. You know,
Hmm.
that's not my problem to deal with.
It really isn't. And
And for years and years and years and years, I tried to take over everybody else's pain. I tried to be the person to fix everything all the time. And emotional resilience was truly my freedom. It was my way out.
wow. Never thought of it that way. I think of it more as your protection or the thing that helps you get through those challenging times. But I didn't think it, in the terms that you mentioned. And I realized I have it or believe I had it when I started saying nothing surprises me anymore.
Mhm.
And things used to rock me, even the littlest things, even the thought of something changing or an issue or whatever. Like, now I'm like, whatever.
Well, one of the greatest misconceptions that people misunderstand is that they think they are being emotionally resilient when really they're being emotionally resistant. That, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with this. It's not my problem. Um, and not allowing themselves to go through the process. And then
Hmm.
eventually what happens, like we talked about last week, you explode. And at the drop of a pin, your whole world starts to crumble around you. And you don't understand why. It's because all of these little pieces have added up. That's where that emotional resistance comes in.
Hmm. When you say, how did you phrase that before? Not emotional resistance, but emotional.
Resilience.
No, like almost like denial. What was that word?
Yeah, so
Um,
it's the emotional resistance.
Resistance. Okay, my bad.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
is when we say a resistance, is it just like you're just not dealing with it? Would you say that that comes, just
Yep. Some people bottle it
ignoring?
up, and they stuff it inside. They don't deal with it. They
Hmm.
push it aside, they push it away, and they think that they're being resilient until they break. And
Hmm.
when they break, it could be a complete emotional meltdown. It could be an explosion. They go into severe depression,
Wow.
and those are the pieces where emotional resilience makes a big difference. And understanding that you're not stuffing those emotions. You're actually allowing yourself to feel them and then give yourself permission to be okay.
Is it a product of when you figured it out, you allow yourself to feel it, and then you move past it quickly?
Sometimes quicker than others.
Yeah, but
It takes
quicker than
time
if
to
you
get
didn't,
there.
quicker than if you didn't figure it out, previously before you did the
100%.
work. Okay. Wow.
100%. I
Hmm.
can move through these emotions sometimes in a day, sometimes in a couple of hours, sometimes in a few minutes. There are some people it might even take a week before they become aware that it's affecting them. And then as soon as they realize it's affecting them, your resilience kicks in and you get better and better. And you start becoming more and more aware as you get better at recognizing your emotions.
All right. How do we do this?
So we actually have six pillars that I want to go through. Last week we talked about some of the elements, and now we've got some pillars. So we have balance. Resilience begins with balance and finding a rhythm between your work, your relationships, the self-care, and the challenges that we face. Understanding that we need to balance these things. And then by nurturing balance, we build steady foundations that helps to ground us and it keeps us centered no matter what happens. So we need to find that balance. Once you have that emotional resilience, you've gained that balance. And it's not about being equal. It's not, 25, 25, 25, 25. It's knowing when to shift the load. And that's how
Hmm.
we find that balance. Intentionality. It really is about making choices on purpose that align with our values and making sure that um, what we are doing, what we are saying, and how we are responding to a situation aligns with who we want to be. I got my notes.
Hmm.
And then we have focused clarity. And that's the combination that once you have that emotional resilience, you're able to see things more clearly and focus on those things that are important. The little things don't bother you. Like you said, nothing surprises me anymore. Those little things don't bother you. Are the big things going to come up? Oh, yeah. Are you able to process that more clearly? Yes. So that's where we come up with that focused clarity. The growth mindset. When you have that emotional resilience, you have that ability to grow past, you get out of your comfort zone and you start to look at, okay, what is this teaching me? Where's the lesson in this event,
Hmm.
this circumstance, this hardship, this stepping stone that's going to get me to the next place? And it gives you that boost into that personal growth.
Is the lesson extremely important to realize?
It is.
Okay.
Oftentimes what happens is if we don't we don't learn the lesson, then that history repeats itself. And the
Well,
universe will
yeah.
continue to throw that at you until you learn that lesson.
Yep. And I have that, and I firmly believe it. No matter what, this is the way it's going to be. You can, keep going this way, keep going that way. Eventually, and it'll still be the same outcome, just take longer. So you might as
Exactly.
well. And I think we've used that analogy before. You're in the river, you're floating, you're swimming, but then you're like, I don't want to go that way. I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to, grab that rock or that log. I'm going to over here. Now let me go over here. That when they say go with the flow, that's what that means. Just go with the current, let it take you where it needs to take you, needs keyword there, because
Yep.
that the universe knows better than we do. That's the way it's going to be. Um, I didn't know that the lesson was so important in
The
this.
lesson is absolutely critical.
Hmm.
And when you have that ability to then look at any given situation, any event, any circumstance in life and say, okay, this sucks.
Yeah.
You give yourself that time to, feel those emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether you're grieving. Okay, now what can I take from this that maybe at some point I want to teach somebody else? Maybe it's my child, maybe it's a friend that is looking and learning a similar lesson. And we're
Hmm.
able to provide the insight of things that we've gone through.
It's a bit of a challenge because in my experience, even recently, you want to share your insight and knowledge and the things that you learned by going through a lot of CRAP so other people don't have to, and the lesson you learned. But not everybody wants to hear your advice, especially your
Nope.
kids.
Nope.
And so I wonder, if it's another adult, is it better to say, can I give you advice or can I tell you what I'm thinking right now about this instead of just, but you know what you should do? It's very, very
Exactly.
delicate balance there.
It is. And more often than not, when you're giving advice, people aren't going to listen anyway. You're just wasting your breath.
That's the truth.
And
Yeah.
what I have found, especially in coaching, when we ask questions, and you can say, okay, well, I've been through a similar situation. Would you like to hear how I handled it? Would you like some ideas?
Mm,
Maybe there's another way that you can approach the situation. And when you
mm.
start asking questions and you get curious, they can start generating more ideas for themselves and come up with their own solution and learn their own lesson.
I like that. I like that because it's many times we just want to blurt it out. I gotta tell you, because you're excited that you figured it out and you want to share it and you see that you feel that you can help them. But that's a great one. I've been through a similar situation. Can I share something with you?
Yeah.
And just,
Well, and oftentimes, when we do that, it feels like we're one-upping them. Oh, yeah, I did that, but guess
right,
what? You
right.
know, and it really diminishes what they're going through.
Yes.
And I don't care if you're going through the loss of a loved one or loss of a pet. The emotions are the same. And trying to outdo, well, I'm sorry you just lost your dog, but my brother just died. There's no difference in the emotion.
Exactly.
And so
Wow.
when you say I've been through something similar,
Mm.
it softens that and doesn't put a comparison inside of it.
The classic is with your kids,
Mhm.
where you offer a suggestion and you try to compare your life when you were younger to theirs. It's all well intended, but you're not them. And that was how many decades ago? Different times now, But
Yep. But the
but
emotions are the same. And so you
but your kid
can,
doesn't know that,
no.
nor do they care to know that. And
Oh no, they hit that teen years, we know it all. It's good.
exactly, yeah. Hmm. When was that moment where you realized that I got emotional resilience?
Whew. I think it was probably after my last emotional breakdown,
Hmm.
because we're not perfect. But the recovery period and being able to apologize and say, okay, I may have overreacted there. And understanding that awareness and now being able to recognize it each time you get a little bit closer. But I had a complete explosion, went off on my husband. And within a matter of a half hour, I'm like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. That was not cool. I'm sorry. And
Hmm.
actually that's number 6 on on our pillars is vulnerability. Being able to be vulnerable and understanding that it's okay to make mistakes. You're not going to be 100% all the time.
Sure.
Otherwise, you literally are going to shut down and you won't feel and you're stuffing and then you explode. And so
I've
really embracing that vulnerability rather than hiding away from the emotions.
even recently, I found that, and I'll be vulnerable. I am. I'll say, I didn't realize it. maybe I was going through this and I shouldn't have done that, and I'm sorry. I see it now. I thought about it last night. And if the other person doesn't accept it, and I don't mean you're just coming up with an excuse, it's heartfelt. Like, whoa, I
Yeah.
got, And if they don't accept it, then you may need to reevaluate. I'm kind of dealing with that right now, to be honest with you. It's
Well, you can always apologize and leave the story out and say, I really thought about our interaction yesterday and I wanted to apologize. I feel I overreacted.
true.
You don't need to include a story. You don't need to include anything that sounds like an excuse. Just say, I thought about that. And if I had an opportunity to do it over, I would do it differently.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I'm
Thanks,
sorry.
thanks. Yeah, sometimes we feel we need to pour it out. You don't necessarily need to, but it's still whether you take the short road, the long road, if they don't understand that you are being genuine in your apology, and this happens, a few times along the way, you might have to look at, you are being you. And if that's not good enough for them, then, and again, we
Then,
all make mistakes.
then we can create a distance. And that's where the setting of boundaries. I think we talked about boundaries last week. When we
Yeah.
were talking about some of the elements, is setting those boundaries and saying, this is where I am. And if you're not there with me, that's okay. But this is my boundary.
hmm That's a really great way to put it to say, this is where I am. And if you're not there, that's it.
Yeah,
We got, we may be at a stalemate. We may be at a standpoint, or a fork in the road.
we are. And then the
hmm
last one is empathy.
hmm
And that is not only empathy for yourself, but empathy for others. When you can have empathy for yourself, it really allows you to treat yourself with more kindness and understanding, giving yourself that forgiveness and the grace that you're not going to be perfect. And then when you have that empathy with others, you're really building those strong connections that helps you to continue on with your emotional resilience and your growth journey.
Interesting. I've never thought of empathy for yourself. So I get, self-love, best thing you can do for anybody. Practice that, all of this. But I never even thought of empathy for yourself. Understanding and cutting yourself some slack. You're not perfect, but saying the words empathy for yourself would have never come out of my mouth ever. I'm like, like, whoa, like this, honestly, Laurie, honestly, that's like a mind blow for me. I don't even know what that means.
Well, it really just helps us to stay connected. It helps us to stay connected to our values. It helps us to stay connected to others. And even just the definition, the word empathy, to empathize, to really
Mm,
connect and have care and concern for yourself makes a difference in how you use the word.
absolutely. This is going to take me time to process. Got to be honest with you, because I never even, the whole notion of it, I never even thought of it because my view is always empathy for others. How are others feeling? I care about you. I have compassion for you. But
Now turn that back on you.
yeah,
Turn that inward. That's amazing. And it also allows you to understand that you can give yourself the same grace that you would give somebody else.
it's not to say that you don't care about yourself. Some of us don't take that time.
Mhm.
Um, and that understanding. And when you get there, that's all good. Um, but the empathy part, it really is a different view of it.
It
Wow.
is.
Wow.
It really is. And that's why I like to teach
Hmm.
and coach on this emotional resilience. You
Yes.
you really get to learn where people are, and then you can start helping them walk and build. And if they
Wow.
don't want to do one-on-one, they can go into an online program and start building that resilience before they earn before they step into that vulnerability. And so
Wow.
that's just one of those pieces where knowledge is power. That's great. But the actions behind the knowledge, the use of that knowledge is really where the true power lies.
Hmm. Would you say that emotional resilience is, you know, the top three or number three, or somewhere between one and three most important things you can do to move your life forward?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also one of the top skill sets for employers.
Hmm. How do you mean?
So when you have an employer that realizes they have people with this emotional resilience, they know that they can count on them. They know they're
Ah,
not going to have an emotional breakdown. They're not going to go through the burnout. They're not going to call in sick to work every other day because they're allowing their body to release that cortisol. They're not getting sick. They're not breaking down. They're not having
hmm.
emotional burnouts. They're able to show
Wow.
up and be productive at work.
Wow. Interesting. Um, how do you know that it's not just somebody that just doesn't care?
Tell me more.
So let's say you know somebody and it just seems like everything rolls off their shoulder. Nothing phases them. They always keep moving forward. Could be an employee, whatever. Um, is there a possibility that they don't have empathy? They just don't even care. Or is that similar to emotional resilience?
That's also an armor. They're putting up a wall and it's a mask more often than not. If
Hmm.
you have somebody, you can tell the difference between the emotional resilience because they are happy, they are engaging, they do have empathy for other people. When they've put up this protective wall around them, they have shut themselves off from the world. And they will interact and they will, more often than not, put up a great facade, but they're really truly not happy inside and it's going to break.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to break. That's what causes suicides. That's what causes like I said, the depression. That's where, people just they pretend and pretend and pretend and pretend and pretend until they can't pretend anymore.
Hmm. So it seems to me the key here is being happy, but being able to move past things forward faster with less emotional damage, if you will.
Yeah, without holding
Mm,
on to it. You can give yourself permission to let go.
mm.
Just because it hurt doesn't mean you have to hold on to that hurt for weeks, months, years,
Right,
decades.
right.
You can let it go.
Yeah,
And for some, they don't want to because they're getting a reward, whether they're getting the sympathy from others, whether
right.
they have that victim mindset. If they're in a victim mindset, you're not going to be able to help much.
No,
If they want to
no.
live that victim life, that's their choice, but they're not going to get to that emotional resilience and that true freedom and true happiness.
20 seconds left here. I want to phrase this properly. Um, when it's in that situation where somebody has done you wrong and you practice emotional resilience, you move along faster. It seems to me that forgiveness is paramount to get that done.
It is, but
Okay.
forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you.
Oh, yeah, oh,
And that
100%.
does not mean that you have to let them back into your life.
Right.
That's a
And
lesson learned.
yes. Oh, well, there's a lesson.
There's a lesson there.
Yes, yes. All right. Very
And
cool.
there's where you can express some of that empathy and say, you know, I understand where you're at, but we're not here together.
Yeah.
The boundaries. It's
And understand why they did what they did. It doesn't, you don't condone, but there's always a reason. And many times it's a reason because they haven't done the work. And it goes back to the
yeah,
phrase, and I believe in it totally, hurt people hurt people.
exactly. They
Yeah.
do.
Mm.
They do.
Wonderful talking about this today. Got to tell you, like, I got to think about this empathy for yourself thing. I really do. It's like, that's new to
I
me.
love it.
New, just learned something. Laurie, best way to find you. I love your website. Tell us.
Jump right on to visiblepotential.com and send me a message. Sign up for that. I've got a 1 year emotional resilience email they can sign up for,
Well, wow,
and they can get a hold of me right there.
it's the key.
It
Emotional
is.
resilience. Move it forward. Thank you so much for today and safe travels with the snow.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.